Hello and welcome to Entheogenesis, true healing with the master teacher plants and divine sacraments, as well as the psychedelic medicines. My name is Robin Flynn, and I will be your non-local quantum guide for this journey of soul awakening, along with my beautiful, heart-centered, just truly amazing husband, Darcy Kopath. And to begin today's module and this course, I would like to offer an opening prayer and acknowledgement, and then we'll move into the teachings for this module. So if you can join me in coming in and down, becoming conscious of your breath, perhaps allowing yourself a couple big audible inhales and exhales, just to land, just to ground into your body, this moment, this time. In every ceremony, we begin with prayer. And this is a ceremony, albeit a non-local one, that's rippling through the quantum field of space and time, and yet still a ceremony. So here's a prayer to open our time, space together. Beloved, Great Spirit, Mother Earth, Father Sky, Grandmother Moon, Grandfather Sun, Divine Child, thank you for this day. Thank you for our lives. Thank you for our good health. Thank you for all the love in our hearts, all the love in this circle, all the love in our communities in this world. We honor and recognize that truly love is the great medicine, the greatest medicine. And all the other medicines, all the other practices, all the other ways we are learning are just to help us to remember, reconnect, and reclaim, reconcile to this big love. And thank you so much to all the spirits of the land where each one of us is. We recognize that we are never alone and that we are always held within this great web of life. And we honor and we thank and we ask for the blessing and the medicine of all the creepy crawlers, the slithers, the wingeds, the finnids, the two-leggeds and the four-leggeds, the standing green and the star nations. To all of our overlighting guides, our higher guides, and to every single one of our higher selves, we call in this full soul power, known in the Andean wisdom traditions as Nuna Kaipa, to oversee, to align, and to build the radical integrity and power of this co-created field of transformation. We thank you to all that gives us life, the earth, the air, the water, the spirit, to all of the ancestors, to all of the First Nations from this land that we each sit upon, to all of the ancestors of these First Nations. We honor you and we recognize you, and we pray to be taught how to come in to deeper and wider and higher right relationship with all these beauty ways. And we give our gratitude as well to the mystery and the synchronicity and even perhaps the algorithms that brought us together. And I pray with my whole heart that everything that I offer in this teaching today, everything that Darcy and I offer in this entire course, be in service, in honor, and devotion of your greatest awakening, healing, your greatest resourcing and empowerment, and for you to have everything that you need to fully empower your awakening and healing journey for this planet. And our own personal healing only ever happens from the inside out. And thank you for being here with me. Thank you for choosing conscious, awake healing. And may we have a good time. So thank you one and all for joining us today. This module 1 is going to be packed with so much information. And I really invite you for each of these modules to take your time to listen to the recording if you need, to pause, to reflect, to know there's no rush. Because as our beautiful elder Carol Stewart always says, that we are infinite eternal beings. So there's really no rush. However, it's also good to get the show on the road. So here we go. So before I begin with the teaching, I also want to acknowledge that Darcy and I would not be here without the incredible support, love, empowerment, and sanction of our beautiful elders and mentors. Now, I first began this journey over 18 years ago. And in that time, I have experienced truly miraculous, radical, revolutionary transformation from the cellular level of my being up. But I wouldn't have been able to walk this path step by step without really incredible, heart-centered human beings meeting me each step along the way, including my beautiful mother, our family, my husband, Darcy, and the different mentors and elders that we've had, beginning with Don Howard Lawler, with the Wishuma traditions in Peru, as well as a Blue Morpho Healing Center with Hamilton Souther and Don Alberto, including our incredible circle of elders in our home of British Columbia. These really just incredible human beings that have loved, supported us, that we have asked since we began practicing in these ceremonial ways to hold us accountable, to help us to see our blind spots. And if we start to act from those blind spots, that they will let us know, so that we are always held in love and even more in accountability as we are developing, as our ego structures are reforming to be in service of our Dharma. And I want to give also a huge shout out, the deepest love possible, to our elders and mentors and friends, Don Oscar Mira Casada and Cindy Mira Casada, the lineage holders of the Pachacudi Mesa lineage and the Heart of the Healer Shamanic Mystery School. So with that said, I also want to thank all of the circles upon circles upon circles of beautiful human beings that I have had the honor to sit within. All of the information that we are sharing with you is from our direct experience and informed by the wisdom teachings of our elders and beautiful mystery schools from around the planet. We're really in this course and in our work bridging and weaving together the perennial wisdom of the ancient ways, as well as seeing how those are reflected in the new science, where shamanism and science meet. However, the great teachers that we've had have also been every human being that we've sat in circle with. And I truly, as a practitioner, am so incredibly grateful, because every ceremony that I'm in, I have 15, 20, 25 teachers. And the information, the clarity, the attunement, the ways that I can pivot and learn and grow and transform so often come from me, from those that we are in service to. There is truly an incredible flow of sacred reciprocity in this great hoop. And in this entheogenesis, non-local ceremonial circle and container that is transcendent of time and space. So we are in many spaces, in many times, and yet somehow we are all here and one together. That in this container, each of you are my teachers as well. And that even if we are only connected through the non-local quantum field of infinite possibility, then we already are blessing and informing one another. We're raising and we're lifting, and there's an evolutionary potentiating that takes place just by sharing the same intention of true healing and awakening. And then to give our gratitude and really the inspiration for this whole journey is the master teacher plants and these incredible spirits, these incredible teachers and guides that are truly emissaries of Gaian love, emissaries of divine love and divine truth, and that they are here at this time rapidly moving through the collective to help us at this critical juncture in our collective awakening and healing process. And the plants are so radical. They are here and things are going to be changing no matter what. However, there are things that each of us needs to know to traverse the entheogenic realms skillfully, smoothly, and ultimately with the goal, the sole intention of healing. Because otherwise, we're not going to get that. There's a whole bunch of other things that could happen, and we'll address that as well. So huge gratitude to all of our teachers in all the many ways. So in this journey, we are recognizing that in order to navigate the entheogenic revolution, and entheogenic, again, is a term that was first coined in the 70s to move away from psychedelic, which means, consciousness altering, into the more mysterious realm that they have always been worked within, as at least the master teacher plans, which is that which gives rise to spirit. So entheogenic is, that which gives rise to spirit, that which gives rise to the divine. And we have taken that word and recognized that there's still something that's dissonant in that for me. And as I've contemplated this, I recognize that what's dissonant is that we are not receiving spirit or God or divinity from the plants. We are already that. And they are here to help us to remember the indwelling, continual rising and flowing of that divinity from within. So entheogenesis is really the continual arising of divinity from within. And we're working with this meta concept, this meta view in philosophy, because just this word and this understanding in itself is an antidote to the scientific reductionistic material paradigm that is invading the psychedelic revolution. I mean, it's always been there, let's be honest, for a few hundred years since the chemists could first isolate and synthesize molecules from plants. Taking the very first plant was actually from the opium poppy, an opioid, was actually taking morphine from opium and then beginning to synthesize that. And that synthesized product then brought about the pharmaceutical revolution. And it's only when we isolate, synthesize a compound, an alkaloid, that we begin to have the devastating consequences that we do with so many pharmaceutical substances, especially consciousness altering pharmaceutical substances like morphine, like fentanyl, like even ketamine, even MDMA can be highly, highly addictive. However, there can still be therapeutic benefit. So I digress. I might do that from time to time. Our goal in this journey is to offer you critical insights and our hard-won experience so that you can have the fundamental skills and the toolkit, the practices to develop the competencies that you're going to need to successfully reclaim your sovereignty, connect directly with source, and awaken the potential of your inner healer through the power of entheogenesis. So the teachings, this process, the practices all interweave to create a unique learning environment for you to both prepare, and perhaps if you've already been a part of the plant spirit medicine world, the psychedelic revolution, the psychedelic renaissance, that you might already have some experiences that you're working with, that you're learning from, that you're integrating. And whether you're brand new or you haven't even worked with these plants or substances yet, or you're a very seasoned traveler, these practices and these teachings will support your empowerment journey with these plants and ultimately with your healing. For true healing is always an awakening journey. And an awakening is actually a healing journey. If it's true awakening and not just a passing state of samadhi. But when we truly awaken, there is a transformation on all levels of our being. And that to me is my hallmark litmus test of an experience. And when we work with these psychoactive compounds and we work with the sacred plant teachers, we have big experiences. But not every big experience is ultimately healing. We can have really big experiences that are shattering, that are actually traumatizing, that take us months and years to recover from. And we can have experiences that are so profound, such a deep and embodied experience of truth, the truth of love and the love of truth, that we are forever changed. And we're changed not just in how we perceive the world, but that shift in perception creates a cascade effect through our entire biology. And what we understand from neuroplasticity and the studies of epigenetics is that as we make these profound changes in our consciousness, that changes then all of the hormones that we're producing, that floods our system and all of our cellular receptors with new information and new hormones. That then informs the cellular wiring of our body to, turn on certain cellular markers of health, well-being, vitality, recovery, and turn off different markers of disease. It's very, very profound. However, just taking the world's most powerful psychoactive compounds does not create the healing experience. It's something that requires specific conditions. And in shamanism, we call this sacred space. And the sacred space is, often kind of like, I feel like it's a bit secondary, in the second wave of the psychedelic renaissance, the idea of set and setting really came out. And this is still incredibly relevant. But really how we articulate set and setting is sacred space. And in order to have a really high vibration, sweet, sacred space, where healing is even a potential. There's certain conditions, there's certain requirements that are non-negotiable. They have to be there. And unfortunately, they're just not there that often. Or if they're there, it's not absolutely consistent. And so in this journey together, we are going to break it down for you. Darcy and I have remained sane, which I think is actually pretty awesome, in really good relationship, vital health, as we have become students now of over 18 years in the sacred plant medicine way. In this time, we have gone deep, and we combined have over 2,200 shamanic and entheogenic ceremonies under our belt. And I mean, really, if you just sit back and contemplate it, that we're still sane is a miracle, and is only because we've been held by impeccable human beings, and because the sincere desire within our hearts was to learn true medicine. Now, this desire for me came from recovering through the sacred plant medicines from a 10-year chronic illness that couldn't be diagnosed by Western medicine, let alone treated. For 10 years, from the age of 14 to 24, I was really unwell. I had an endocrine disorder that caused so much stress and suffering, and it was really disturbing. It was just an incredibly challenging time of my life. And simultaneously, I was a teenager. I went to university. I put myself through school. And I ultimately came to the sacred plant teachers of Bushuma and ayahuasca. And then my experimentation before that for, my whole, since basically I was 14 as well, with the sacred mushrooms and different psychedelics. But I was called to the ceremonial ways with the plants, recognizing that I knew on a deep level that my unwellness and my relationship to the earth and our relationship as a human family to the earth and our level of unwellness was not separate, that there was something connecting in this way. I was getting my degrees from Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado, in environmental studies and eco-psychology, which we will be diving into because we actually feel that eco-psychology is the missing component within most all of the psychedelic therapy happening. It is an incredible, necessary, vital perspective that Darcy and I hope to, speak to and share with as many people as we can, because without eco-psychology, we will never be able to reach the full healing potential of the entheogens. And so we'll talk about that more on this journey. And then when I was able to first find the plants in Peru, with Darcy and I, my first journey to Peru with him over 18 years ago, I was doing my field work for my master's thesis. And I was getting a master's, which now I've had for many years, in good and sustainable communities. And this program was amazing. However, I again had this sense of dislocation. It was wild to be sitting in these university classrooms with some of the brightest, most heart-centered, truly sincere human beings that I'd met at that point. And we're talking about how do we create, the world where everyone's fed, where the water systems flow, where we're no longer eroding the soils through our farming methods. Well, how do we not create more toxic sites? And we're having these big conversations, and then really sincerely, inquiring into how do we create these communities. And as I was sitting in these classrooms, I realized every single person, beginning with myself, was really ill. Like, we weren't well. And I didn't know what to do. But my heart and my intuition and my guidance said, I need to find an entirely different way to see, to perceive, to experience. I needed an entirely different model, because this model isn't working. We're trying to figure it out, but we can't embody it. And my body was so out of balance for so long, I couldn't even find a little bit of like a midline place to stand in health. And so I journeyed to Peru, and I was able to work with these incredible practitioners, truly high level devotees of the plants, master shamans, as some would call them. And in these ceremonies, I was there secretly hoping for healing in my body. But by that point, I had been searching for the magic pill for so long. I'd been looking for the doctor who would just say, hey, I've got it. Here's your issue. Here's what you got to do. And after exhausting that for 10 years, I actually made a pact with myself that I wouldn't go with my main intention to change my body. Even though I couldn't imagine living past 30 at that point. I couldn't. Like, what I was going through was so intense that I couldn't imagine myself beyond it. And I couldn't imagine myself turning 30. And so really my intention in going down was to reconcile life and death. I went down for the love of truth. I needed to understand and to experience the truth of what I am. I needed to find a way to connect, to reconnect with source, with spirit, and with my very own soul. I knew it was possible, but I didn't know how to get there. And so I didn't go to those first ceremonies demanding or even asking for physical healing. I went, that was definitely a hope, but I went with the intention to embrace and to go deeper into truth than I'd ever gone before. And then through those first ceremonies, which in 2.5 months, we experienced, Darcy and I, 10 Washuma ceremonies and 10 ayahuasca ceremonies. Now, I can never in good conscience recommend that you or anybody else do that much medicine in 2.5 months, but that was what we did. And that's just what I needed. I was ready for it. I had been honed and tempered by 10 years of intense suffering. And while it was the hardest thing that I had ever done at that point, and that's saying a lot after 10 years of chronic illness, entering into those ceremonies, the cleansing that was required so that my body could heal, the cleansing that was required so I could move through the dissonance, the chaos, and the static of my own trauma, the intergenerational trauma held within my being, our collective trauma. It was outrageous. And what happened for me was not only did I experience a radical and profound up-leveling of my quality of life, my body healed. I left Peru with a new body. And I had very clear instructions from the plants that I needed to make some significant changes in how I was living so that I could keep that healing, so that those new patterns could grow in momentum and power and become my baseline. And I got home and I made those changes, because if you've ever been in really deep suffering and you receive a helping hand, there's like nothing in me was going to take that for granted. And I didn't. I went for it. And I also realized anything that has this level of efficacy is absolutely worth studying. And what I also realized was that how I'd been learning to learn the Western ways that I was pretty good at, like school wasn't challenging for me in that I must have intuited what the teachers wanted and was really good at pleasing them and getting A's, and I love to learn. However, learning with the plant medicines, learning with these lineages, these ancestrally sanctioned plant medicine sanctioned lineages, a whole different style of learning. And so 18 years ago, I embarked on this journey. And Darcy and I have been walking side by side this whole time. We have been collaborators and co-conspirators and really co-creators of this journey. And so while we have our own individual path, my path is my path, and his path is his path, we walk side by side, and we are so grateful to do so. Being in sacred partnership in this way, as totally autonomous, sovereign beings in conscious partnership, is one of the great blessings in my life, in our lives, and also really, really helps to stay grounded, stay awake, and stay motivated on this path of learning. And so in this last 18 plus years, we have dove deep. We have had the great blessing to work in many different plant medicine lineages, to experience different styles and different ways, and to be blessed, to be supported, to be held within the river of lineage of the Andean medicine traditions, the Pachacuti Mesa tradition, and the beauty ways of Washuma, curanderismo, and how each master teacher plant is a whole universe, a whole world unto itself, a mystery school in its own right, and that we've been able to study and learn with these great teachers in plant form, in spirit form. And so we're sharing all of this. We're really going to do our best to like powerhouse this journey for you, so that you have the beginning, but not as in beginner, but as in foundational, as in we're always at the beginning every day. Every ceremony I'm in, I'm always at the beginning. It's always so fresh. It's right at my leading growth edge. And that is where this course is designed to meet you and to meet each one of us. So thank you for your presence and listening to a bit of that context. Okay, so what are the conditions that are required for the inner healer to awaken? Because the inner healer is a little bit shy. The universal intelligence that lives within us only arises within certain conditions. And so as a ceremonial plant spirit medicine practitioner, my job, my role, and Darcy's role is not to hold the space or be the healer. Because how do you hold space anyway? I mean, we can be present and we'll break that down. But these terms are thrown out there a lot, and it's good to inquire into them. But the conditions that are necessary, that's our role to hold. And to be consciously aware that first, the healer only ever resides within. And so there is a lot of different paradigms of healing out there. And there's a lot of different paradigms of healing within shamanic traditions. I mean, really countless. Shamanism is the oldest spiritual practice on the planet. Wherever you have earth and sky and humans, you have shamanism. And now the shamanism of Turtle Island in North America and the shamanism in Australia, the Aboriginal shamanism, they're different because there's different spirits of the land. The landscapes, the animals, the environment are totally different. And yet shamanism has sprouted everywhere. And so the practices from the Aboriginals and the practices from North American traditions, even though they're so different, if you're a shamanic practitioner, you can see where the dance is. You can see what the practices are. And it's different, but it's the same. As well as if you travel all across the world, the shamanic practices are radically similar, and they're at least 80,000 years old, at least. And the core tenets of shamanism are that everything is alive. Everything is sentient, everything is conscious, and everything is consciousness. And because everything is alive, everything is conscious, everything is sentient, that we can make a relationship with all. From the spirits of the land that live in the stone outcroppings, to the animal spirits, to the spirit of the waterfall, and so on. And then as a shamanic practitioner, our role is to move into expanded states of consciousness, which every shamanic practice has some form of trance-inducing practice. Some way of expanding consciousness. Now, the plant spirit medicine forms of shamanism work with plants to help us to move into different brain states, to expand our state of consciousness so that we can open to more sensory input. What we don't often understand in the West is that when we're opening to more sensory input, we're actually opening to the vast field of energy, of spiritual life that is beyond our the visible light spectrum of humans, but nonetheless inhabit the land. And the shamanic practitioner, our job, our role is to be the intermediary, to connect to that world of spirit, to build unique relationships. And through those allyships with those guiding forces, be able to support the health, the well-being, the vitality, the fertility, the abundance of the people. Now, in these different forms of shamanism, there's a lot of different ideas and paradigms of who the shaman is, who the healer is, and who the community member or the client is. Now, what we hold, what we know to be true, and what we practice, and what we feel is an absolute requirement of sacred space so that healing can actually happen, true healing can take place, is that we see, we hold, we understand that while we may be creating these connections with this vast field of life and awareness, that as a practitioner, our role is to help the inner healer awaken, the inner healer within ourselves first, and then within any community member who comes to us. So that's number one, is to not fall into the game of, oh, I'm the healer and you're just lying there passive and I'm going to do this on you and I'm going to heal you. That's not how we see it. And in fact, when we have worked in those ways with people who practice in that paradigm, what we noticed it creates is dependency. So then when I've gone to somebody to get healing from them and I get healed, I feel better afterwards, which is basically an agreement between both of us. They're the healer, I'm the patient, they do work. I have my inner healer begins to make those changes. But if I see the source of that healing as outside of myself, which I have before, much to my detriment, then the next time something comes up, I need to go see them again. And it becomes not about the awakening of the inner healer, about empowerment and about personal resource. It becomes about dependency. And then in order to to create that change within, I need to have that outside person. And you can fill in the blank here. It could be a person, it can be a plant, it could be any form of a outside coping mechanism. But the most important condition for sacred space is recognizing that the healer resides within. And in order for that inner healer to rise to the surface, there are specific energies that we need to be met with. And I can say this, that I know this from working with literally hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of people in Sacred Circle. And this process is so remarkable because really it's so simple that any child understands it. That what we need for our inner healer to arise is a space, a relational space, but also a physical space where we feel the overarching energies of love, compassion, kindness, presence, respect, non-judgment, consideration, where we feel like whoever is in that space holding role, that facilitating role, has the inner maturity, has the spiritual maturity and the life experience to hold us in unconditional positive regard. That while we're in the messy process of sometimes feeling all the big feelings that come when we imbibe these sacred plant teachers or these psychedelics for healing, it can be a messy process, that we're held in impeccable love and that we're not being judged in that. And that process then allows that innocence, which is really invincible and yet is so shy and gets so buried by the intensity of our life experience, by the harshness that can be in this world, by what we, quote unquote, call trauma, all the different forms of trauma. That innocence, that true essential nature, that inner healer can get pretty covered up. And that in order to come to the surface, to rise to the surface, it needs to have this type of space, this type of presence offered by another if we're not able to offer it to ourselves. One of the things that is so important is to work with others and for ourselves as well. Hold our vulnerability as sacred. And so when anybody comes to work with Darcy and I, we begin our circles in much the same way, because it's so important to acknowledge these things. It's so important for anybody who's coming to a sacred circle, for myself or for anyone, to know that within the circle, this non-local circle that we're in, or when we're in physical circles with people, that in a circle, there's nobody ahead or behind. There's nobody above or below. We're all in the circle together. We're in this one hoop, this hoop of light. And that within this hoop, we recognize that the healer always resides within. And that each one of us is there remembering that inner healer, that true essential nature, the universal intelligence within. And our healing is our awakening journey, because true healing and true awakening is an embodiment process. It's got to be embodied. It can no longer just be an idea of like, oh, I had this awesome experience and I was on ayahuasca and I was shown the whole universe and, it was like blown out. And I had the experience of oneness and love. And now that experience, it was beautiful, but it just sits on that inner shelf, collecting dust. But every once in a while, I take it off and I dust it off and I tell the story. But my relationships haven't changed. My self-care practices haven't changed. I haven't changed anything in my life. So there's been no healing. So that's the opposite of what we're going for here, which is to recognize that if we're really here for true healing, the healer resides within, and we have to embody what we are given. And to understand this embodiment process, we are working with a very ancient symbol template of wholeness. And the symbol and template of wholeness is what's known across the world as a medicine wheel. Now, the medicine wheel is a representation, a symbol of wholeness, that we are one unified being, body, mind, emotions, spirit, soul, that truly there's no division, that any division that we perceive is an illusion, and that it's the illusions of this division, these illusions of separation, that are the root cause of so much illness, imbalance, and suffering in our lives and within the world. Let me repeat that. It's the illusions of separation that are the root of so much illness and imbalance in our world. And when we're working with this symbol of wholeness, the medicine wheel, we can rest into the understanding that this medicine wheel has been utilized by people all over the world. That just like shamanism, and how there's been shamanism wherever there's been humans, earth, and sky, there's also been the symbol of the medicine wheel. And now this symbol of the circle and then the cross has been found everywhere. And some of these symbols they vary, of course. There's the Celtic cross, which has the cross is much bigger and then the circle there. There's a Chinese medicine wheel, which instead of having 4 quadrants or 4 seasons, has 5. There's the Ayurvedic medicine wheel, which is a tridoshic symbol of wholeness. There's the 3 doshas. And so outside of the divisions of 3, 4, 5, we have this universal symbol of wholeness. That while we have all these different sensorial experiences and all these different levels of being within the human experience, that in reality, we're one unified whole. There's no way for the mind and body to actually be separate, but we sure think they're separate. And that thinking that they're separate causes an incredible amount of self-harm in our world. It's also incredibly good for big business, So there's reasons it's been perpetuated. But even within that, to recognize the symbol of wholeness is very powerful. And it's simple. The most powerful teachings, the most powerful medicines are often the most simple and elegant. And so in the deepening materials, especially within the definition of terms, which we give in week 2, there's a beautiful write-up on the medicine wheel and a symbol that we're going to be using from that known as a circumpoint. And the circumpoint is the circle with the dot in the middle. And please read that section to learn more and to digest more what the geometry that we're going to be working with to help structure our consciousness into building the conditions of sacred space. The very center of this hoop, of this wheel, of this, the circle and the circumpoint center is that inner healer. It's absolutely essential, central. The most important thing is to recognize that this healing and awakening does not happen from the outside in. It happens only and ever from the inside out. Awesome. Okay, thanks for continuing with me here. This is a big download, but very important. All right. So within the circumpoint, the medicine wheel, we're adding in another idea, another philosophy, another way of seeing, which is the recognition of the Holon. Now, the Holon represents a nested hierarchy within nature. So this is a new science term, however, a very, very ancient, mystical, and philosophical understanding as well that can be found in different traditions around the world. So the Holon is a nested hierarchy. And so what we work with is we work with a symbol of wholeness, the medicine wheel. The circumpoint is the center of the wheel where the cross meets. And then we're going to be working within these circles upon circles of sanctuary. And so our universe, our world, operates from this level of natural hierarchy, not as in bigger as better, but as in life being embedded in itself. And so the cell lives within the organ, and the organ is within the body, and the body is within the environment, the ecosystem of Pachamama, and Pachamama is held within the solar system, and so on. You can expand infinitely big, or we could go way, 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 way smaller than the cell. Each level of that creation is a holonic level of reality. And so when we're building our consciousness around these teachings, and then also the practice that we introduce each week that we call the circles of sanctuary, which is the most powerful practice for creating sacred space that we have, because it's really just structuring our consciousness around this natural hierarchy of resource, of empowerment, of the spiritual benevolent forces within creation. And it's simple and it's fun, even if the underlying philosophy is pretty rich and deep. And so just to share that the understanding of Holon we've really drawn this from the work of Ken Wilber and the integral theory perspective. And we feel that one of the most important things that we can embrace as practitioners, as heart-centered human beings, is growing our intelligence in an integral fashion. recognizing that we have many different forms of intelligence, that there's the kinesthetic, there's the rational, there's emotional, there's intrinsic awareness and extrinsic awareness. There's these different forms of intelligence within us. And we want to weave and develop in an integral and holistic way. And the concept of Holon comes from this integral theory, recognizing that developmentally, we must have one developmental step, and then from there, the next and the next. And that is also the path of initiation within traditional medicine lineages and mystery schools. There's always there's one teaching that is foundational to the next teaching. And once we really land that next teaching, we can receive the following. That we have to have a foundational level of understanding step by step in order to truly embody, to have gnosis, embodied learning, embodied understanding of the wisdom tradition, of the medicine. And so we've developed this course in inspiration and honor of these traditional learning styles that are always integral, that are layered, and that are initiatory in that one step leads to the next, leads to the next. And so please know that in this first module, this first week, we're dropping this most important piece, the center of the center, the true healing being the journey of awakening and creating the conditions of the inner healer. So thank you so much for journeying with me. I know that's a lot of information. I invite you to digest, to absorb, to contemplate everything that I've shared. If you have questions, please put that on our group communication board, our group chat, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And so to close for today, I want to really share how the blessings of the master teacher plants, divine sacraments, and psychedelic medicines are received through our inner state of presence. And so as we embark on this journey and you are dedicating this time, this energy, these resources to this part of your healing and awakening journey, which will ultimately always lead to your sacred path of service, because your healing journey is your sacred path of service, but we'll get more to that, that you honor and that you find a way to have fun, to create the space and time to give yourself this learning, this teaching, this awakening. And we will be here with you step by step, walking with you and celebrating your journey of resource and empowerment, of bringing this vast field of consciousness, this vast field of potential into your daily life, whether you are communing with the sacraments or living the day-to-day with the wild journey of just being an awake human being. So with so much love, so many blessings, Ayu Masi Kanapa, for the love of truth and the truth of love, I am.